To understand how a bride left at the altar ended up owning the groom's billion-dollar empire, you have to understand the exact moment the music stopped. The plan was perfect. At least, that was what everyone in the room thought. The venue was a cathedral of Monaco, a masterpiece of Neo-Byzantine architecture, booked 2 years in advance to accommodate the egos and schedules of 300 of the world's wealthiest heirs, tech moguls, and European royalty. The air inside the cathedral was thick with the scent of 10,000 white roses and Casablanca lilies. The flowers alone cost more than most people's homes. The crystal chandeliers cast a warm, golden glow over pews, each one upholstered in silk that had been flown in from Milan just for the afternoon. It was supposed to be the wedding of the decade. It was supposed to be a fairy tale. But fairy tales don't exist in the world of the ultra-elite. In that world, love is a currency and loyalty is a liability. Adriana Vale stood at the very back of the grand hall, her hand resting lightly on her father's arm. She wasn't royalty. She wasn't an heiress to a fashion empire or a tech dynasty. She was a woman who had fought for her place in this room with nothing but her intellect, her work ethic, and her silence. To the world looking in, she was a lucky one. The magazines called her the Cinderella of the Côte d'Azur. She was a girl from a remarkably modest background who had somehow captured the heart of Lucas Beaumont, the devastatingly handsome heir to one of Europe's oldest and largest shipping and logistics empires. But in the world of the ultra-rich, luck is just a word they use to describe someone they plan to use. As the heavy swell of the church organ music echoed off the ancient stone walls, Adriana took a step forward. Her gown was a masterclass in understated elegance ivory silk that brushed softly against the cold marble floor, a stark contrast to the heavy diamonds dripping from the necks of the women sitting in the pews. She walked down the aisle. Every eye was on her. She could feel the weight of their judgments, the subtle sneers hidden behind manicure hands and expensive fans. They were looking at her like a lamb walking into a den of wolves, entirely unaware of the slaughter that was about to happen. She looked up. Lucas was waiting for her at the altar. He looked handsome. He looked perfect in his tailored black tuxedo. But as Adriana got closer, she noticed something else in his eyes. He looked terrified. At the time, Adriana had assumed it was just cold feet, the natural anxiety of a man about to commit his life to one woman. She offered him a soft, reassuring smile. She had no idea that the fear in his eyes was actually the panic of a man about to commit the ultimate, most public betrayal. If you enjoy stories of high-stakes drama, elite betrayal, and the moment justice is finally served against those who think they are untouchable, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We have stories like this every single week. The priest, an older man adorned in traditional white and gold vestments, smiled benevolently at the couple and began the ceremony. The vows were spoken. The promises were made. The crowd watched with bated breath, their cameras poised, waiting for the perfect shot to post to their private Instagram accounts. It was a performance like everything in this world. But then, something happened that no photographer could have anticipated. The heavy wooden doors at the back of the church groaned open. The majestic sound of the organ faltered, missing a chord before trailing off into an awkward, deafening silence. Everyone turned. Standing there, framed by the blinding Mediterranean sunlight that poured through the open doors, was Victoria Laurent. Victoria wasn't just an ex-girlfriend. She was the woman Lucas was supposed to marry before Adriana ever entered the picture. She came from old money, the kind of money that doesn't just buy yachts, but buys countries. She had the right bloodlines, the right last name, the right connections. She was a woman Henri Beaumont, Lucas' father, had wanted as a daughter-in-law all along. Victoria stood there in a sleek, emerald green silk dress that clashed violently with the white wedding decor. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Her presence alone was a detonation. Adriana froze. She felt Lucas' hand slip out of hers. The physical contact was severed, but the shock of it felt like a physical blow. Lucas didn't look at his bride. He didn't look at the priest. He looked past Adriana, down the aisle to the front row. He looked at his father, Henri Beaumont. Henri, a man made of stone and old-world arrogance, sat perfectly still. He looked at his son, and then, almost imperceptibly, he gave a slow, deliberate nod. The trap was sprung. Lucas stepped forward, physically stepping away from Adriana. He turned his back on her and began to walk down the aisle away from the altar toward Victoria. The silence in the room was so absolute, so suffocating, that it physically hurt to breathe. 300 guests sat paralyzed, unable to process what they were witnessing. Lucas stopped a few feet from Victoria, turned around and faced the crowd. He looked at the cameras, knowing full well that investors and business partners were watching the live satellite feed the wedding. He cleared his throat, his voice cracking slightly as it amplified through the hidden microphones. "I can't do this," Lucas said. "I can't marry her." A collective gasp rippled through the cathedral. Guests turned to each other, hands flying to mouths, eyes wide with a mixture of horror and twisted delight. He turned fully to the crowd, playing the part of the tragic, tortured hero. "My heart belongs to Victoria. It always has. I made a terrible mistake trying to marry for convenience. I was trying to do what was easy, but I realize now that I can't live without the woman I truly love." It was a beautiful speech. It was also a complete, calculated lie. He wasn't abandoning Adriana because of love. He was marrying for convenience right in that exact moment. Adriana had been the convenient one, the brilliant, but quiet outsider with no family leverage, no powerful father to dictate terms. She was supposed to be a docile placeholder, but the script had flipped at the last minute. The Beaumont family needed a merger with the Lawrence to save a flailing subsidiary, and Lucas needed to look like a romantic hero reclaiming his destiny, rather than a coward abandoning his commitments for a stock bump. Adriana stood alone at the altar. The priest took a step back, clutching his Bible to his chest. 300 pairs of eyes burned into Adriana's skin. She could hear the whisper starting, mutating from gasps into cruel gossip. She was just a placeholder. She never belonged here. Poor girl. She really thought she was one of them. Victoria walked forward, a triumphant, venomous smirk painted on her face. She took Lucas' arm, possessively intertwining her fingers with his. They stood together at the center of the aisle, the restored golden couple, while Adriana stood in her $10 wedding dress, discarded like yesterday's newspaper. Humiliation is a physical weight. It presses down on your chest. It makes the air thin and hard to breathe. It makes your skin feel like it's on fire. Adriana felt all of it. She felt the hot, prickling shame rising in her cheeks. She felt the tears threatening to gather in the corners of her eyes, desperate to spill over and prove to these vultures that she was broken. But beneath the crushing weight of the public humiliation, she felt something else. She felt the sharp, crisp edges of the folded document tucked securely into the hidden pocket of her wedding dress. Most people assumed Adriana was naive. It was a mistake everyone made. They assumed that because she was quiet, she was soft. They assumed that because she had fallen in love with Lucas, she was blind to the reality of his world. They looked at her modest upbringing and decided she was a simple girl swept up in a glittering world she didn't understand. But Adriana wasn't a naive girl. She was a senior corporate lawyer by trade. She had spent her early 20s dissecting contracts, finding loopholes, and taking down arrogant billionaires in boardrooms. She knew that in the world of the ultra-rich, love is a luxury, but contracts are the only reality. 6 months ago, Henri Beaumont had summoned Adriana to his sprawling estate. He had slid a thick, leather-bound document across the mahogany table. It was a prenuptial agreement. It was a brutal, one-sided document designed to protect every single cent of the Beaumont fortune. If they divorced, she got nothing. If she spoke poorly of him in public, she got nothing. If she cheated, she owed him money. It was a financial cage. Adriana had read the document page by page in total silence, while Henri watched her with a smug, expectant smile. When she finished, she didn't cry. She didn't argue. She picked up a heavy silver pen and made a single, quiet request. She asked for a public integrity clause. She had looked Henri dead in the eye, then turned to Lucas and spoken with terrifying calm. "If we're going to build a life together, Lucas, we need to build it on respect. I will sign your prenup. I will sign away my rights to your family's historical assets. But I want a reciprocal clause. If you or your family publicly humiliates me, abandons his marriage for a third party before the contract is officially dissolved, or forces a public spectacle that damages my reputation, the protective measures of this prenup are entirely void. Furthermore, To ensure good faith, I retain control of 30% of the Beaumont liquid assets currently held in trust for the wedding expenses." Lucas had laughed out loud. He had looked at his father, and they had shared a condescending chuckle. "Adriana, my love, why would I ever humiliate you? We're getting married. Just sign it, Lucas," she had said softly, her hand resting on his. "If you love me, it costs you absolutely nothing. It's just a piece of paper." He was in a hurry. He was distracted by a phone call from a yacht broker. He didn't read the fine print of her addition. He just signed it. Henri signed it as a legal witness, not even bothering to put on his reading glasses. They thought it was a cute, sentimental, slightly pathetic gesture from a naive girl who just wanted to feel protected. They had signed away their empire in 20 seconds. Back at the altar, the priest looked thoroughly confused, his hands hovering in the air. Do we continue? Is there a blessing?" Henri Beaumont stood up from his front row pew. His face was hard, his eyes cold. "There is no wedding. The ceremony is over. Ms. Vale, security will escort you out through the side entrance immediately. We don't want a scene." A scene. That was all she was to them. A mess to be cleaned up. A stain to be removed before the reception catering got cold. 3 large security guards in tailored black suits began to move toward the altar, their shoes echoing on the marble. Victoria leaned into Lucas' ear, loud enough for the first row to hear, a cruel smile on her lips. "Get her out of here. She's ruining the photos." Adriana didn't move. She didn't flinch. She didn't shed a single tear. She took a deep, measured breath. Slowly, deliberately, she reached into the intricate silk bodice of her dress and pulled out the folded document. It was slightly bent from being pressed against her ribs, but the heavy wax seal of the notary was perfectly visible. She walked past the stunned priest. She walked to the edge of the altar, right up to the microphone that Lucas had just used to break her heart in front of the world. She tapped the metal mesh of the microphone. A sharp, high-pitched whine echoed through the cathedral, making everyone wince. The security guards paused, stopping dead in their tracks. They were muscle, not brains, and they were subtly unsure of their authority over a woman who was standing at a microphone, holding what looked like an official legal decree. "I'm afraid I can't leave just yet," Adriana said. Her voice didn't shake. It didn't waver. It was steady. It was steel wrapped in silk. Lucas rolled his eyes, letting out an exasperated sigh that he clearly intended the cameras to catch. "Adriana, please, don't beg. It's pathetic. We have the prenup. You get nothing. Just walk away with whatever dignity you have left." "I'm not begging, Lucas," she said, her eyes locking onto his with lethal intensity. "I'm collecting." She turned her body slightly, addressing the 300 guests, the rolling cameras, and the silent investors watching via satellite feed. "Mr. Beaumont just mentioned the prenuptial agreement. He is correct. I signed away my rights to his family's historical fortune. I agreed to protect the assets he inherited. But what he and his father failed to read or perhaps failed to comprehend was the public integrity clause attached to the very last page of that document." She held the paper up, the seal catching the light. Clause 14, Section B. "In the event of public abandonment, public humiliation, or the overt pursuit of a third party prior to the official dissolution of the engagement, all protective measures of the prenup are rendered null and void." Lucas froze. The arrogant smirk vanished from his face, replaced by a sudden, pale panic. "Furthermore," Adriana continued, her voice rising slightly, ringing with absolute authority through cathedral as she read from the text, "the initiating party in this case, Mr. Lucas Beaumont, agrees to forfeit what I titled the consolation package. This package was defined in a legally binding addendum signed by Lucas, his father Henri, and myself. That package includes exactly 30% of the Beaumont Trust's liquid assets. And this is my personal favorite par majority, voting rights on the executive board of Beaumont Logistics." She paused, letting the silence stretch until it was unbearable. Because as of 3 days ago, to avoid offshore tax liabilities on the wedding expenses, those specific shares were legally transferred into my name to cover the eventual marital costs. They're no longer Beaumont assets. They are mine. The room didn't just erupt. It detonated. It wasn't the hushed, scandalized whispering of a few moments ago. It was a wave of shock. Investors in the pews pulled out their phones, frantically messaging their brokers. Board members looked at each other in sheer terror. The stock price of Beaumont Logistics hadn't crashed yet on the public markets, but inside that cathedral, the company's future was being torn apart in real time. Henri Beaumont, a man who had spent 50 years crushing his rivals, stormed down the aisle, his face purple with rage. "That is a fake. She's lying." "Security," I said, "seize that paper." "Touch me," Adriana said, her voice dropping to a terrifying, quiet whisper that somehow carried over chaos. She locked eyes with the older man, unblinking. "Lay a single finger on me, and I will call the Monaco police for assault and destruction of evidence. And I have a witness right there." She pointed a steady finger to the third row. A man stood up slowly. He was in his 50s, wearing a meticulously tailored suit, adjusting his glasses with an air of absolute, untouchable authority. It was Marc Delacroix, a senior partner at one of the most ruthless and respected law firms in Monaco. He was also a man Henri Beaumont currently owed a massive, highly confidential financial favor to. Marc looked down his nose at Henri. "I personally witnessed the signatures. Henri, I notarized the document. I advised Ms. Vale on the wording myself. It is airtight and it is legally binding. I would highly recommend you sit down." The color completely drained from Lucas' face. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked like a man who had just stepped off a cliff, only realizing there was no ground beneath him when the wind hit his face. He looked at Victoria, desperate for help. Victoria looked toward the door. She wasn't interested in a man with no power, no money, and a collapsing dynasty. She subtly dropped his arm, taking a half step away from him. You can't do this," Lucas stammered, taking a step toward the altar. "You can't just. You don't own the company. You're nobody." "I don't own the company, Lucas," Adriana corrected him, her voice cold and final. "I own the controlling interest. I don't own the ships. I don't own the warehouses. I own you." The next 20 minutes were pure, unadulterated chaos. Lawyers who were guests at the wedding were immediately pulled into the side chapels, making frantic phone calls. Phones buzzed incessantly. The shareholders in the audience were already whispering, ruthlessly recalculating their positions, deciding who they needed to align with to survive the coming board coup. Through it all, Adriana didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't throw the bouquet. She simply stood at the altar, the contract resting neatly in her hand, and watched the reality of his actions settle over Lucas and his father like a funeral shroud. Lucas had traded his entire empire for a moment of theatrical passion with an old flame. He had assumed that power was his birthright, something woven into his DNA, something that could never be taken from him by a girl from the wrong side of the tracks. He had fundamentally forgotten that in the modern world, power is transactional, and he had just made the worst transaction of his life. Henri was slumped in a pew, his head in his hands, being shouted at by his own legal team. He looked up at Adriana with a mix of venom and sheer disbelief. "How did you do this? How do we miss this?" "Because you didn't read the fine print, Henri," Adriana said softly as she began to walk down the aisle toward the exit, passing the broken man. "You never thought a girl like me could write a clause you couldn't break. You thought I was just a pretty face you could control." She walked toward the massive wooden doors. She didn't run. She didn't rush. She walked with the slow, measured dignity of a queen leaving a conquered kingdom. Victoria intercepted her at the door, blocking her path. Victoria, the woman who had won the man but lost the ultimate prize. Her eyes were frantic, her high society mask slipping. "You planned this," Victoria hissed, leaning in close so the cameras couldn't hear. "You knew he was going to do this? You trapped him." Adriana looked at her, feeling absolutely no malice, only a profound sense of pity. "I hoped he wouldn't, Victoria. I loved him, Victoria. I really did. I wanted this wedding to be real. But I knew who he was. I knew who his father was. And I knew that in this world, love isn't enough to protect you. You need insurance." Victoria stepped back, stunned into silence, as Adriana gently moved her aside and pushed open the heavy doors. Adriana stepped out into the blinding Monaco sunlight. The air was fresh, smelling of salt and sea breeze, completely washing away the cloying scent of cathedral flowers. The paparazzi were waiting outside the gates, a swarm of flashing bulbs and shouting voices, hungry for the photo of the crying, broken bride. Instead, they got a woman in a stunning, flawless wedding dress, holding a legal document at her side, looking calmer and more composed than anyone who had just been dumped at the altar had any right to be. "Ms. Vale, did he leave you? Are you okay? Ms. Vale, are you heartbroken? Do you have a statement? Adriana, why are you smiling?" Adriana stopped on the top step. She turned to face the wall of cameras. She didn't flinch at the flashes. He made a choice today, a very public, very deliberate choice. And now, he has to live with the consequences of his actions. I wish him and Ms. Lauron a very lovely life together. On whatever budget they have left, a black, unmarked luxury car was waiting at the curb, the engine purring. Adriana walked down the steps and got inside. The door closed, instantly muffling the screams of the paparazzi. Mark Delacroix was already sitting in the back seat, his phone pressed to his ear, speaking in rapid, hushed French to a board member. He hung up and looked at her, a ghost of a smile on his lips. "The emergency board vote is scheduled for next Tuesday," Mark said, putting his phone away. "They're terrified. Henri is already trying to rally a vote of no confidence against you. But the shares are irrevocably yours until the clause is contested in court, which will take years. They want to know your intentions. Are you going to liquidate? Are you going to sell to a competitor?" Adriana looked out the tinted window. Through the glass, she could see the top of the cathedral steps. Lucas was standing there, looking small, pale, and utterly defeated. Victoria was standing a few feet away from him, on her own phone, ignoring him completely. He was holding his hand out to her, and she was refusing to take it. He looked like a man holding a live grenade. "My intention," Adriana said, her voice quiet but resolute, "is to run that company better than he ever could. My intention is to clean up the corruption Henri has been hiding in the shipping lanes for decades. And my intention is to never, ever let anyone underestimate me again." Mark nodded, satisfied. "And the wedding dress?" Adriana looked down at the silk and lace. She reached up and unclipped the heavy diamond necklace Lucas had given her, dropping it carelessly into the glove box of the car. "The dress stays," she said. "I paid for it out of the wedding trust. It's mine, too." The car pulled away from the curb, merging into the glamorous traffic of Monaco. The wedding of the decade was over. The marriage had never happened. The fairy tale had burned to ash. But as Adriana leaned back against the leather seat, watching the Mediterranean Sea glitter in the distance, she knew her real life had just begun. It wasn't the wedding day she had dreamed of when she was a little girl. It wasn't the day she got her happy ending, but it was better than a happy ending. It was the day she stopped being a victim in someone else's story and started being the author of her own, because in a world full of wolves, you don't survive by being the nicest sheep in the pasture. You survive by being the one who secretly owns the farm. If this story proved anything to you, it's that you should never underestimate the quiet ones. If you want to see more stories where the arrogant finally get exactly what they deserve, hit that subscribe button right now and leave a comment telling me what you would have done if you were in Adriana's shoes. I read every single one.